Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
And then you talk about the PTSD, and we talk about the suicides. Let's come down to it very clearly. We have hundreds of thousands of reported diagnosed with PTSD, but at the same time we have hundreds of thousands diagnosed with serious physiological problems due to toxic exposures. The PTSD is a function of toxic exposures where the brain and the body no longer function
Yeah, they're
well.
just using that as a cover, a psychological cover. They did that in the first Gulf War. Oh, your teeth are falling out. You're dying of brain tumors. You're mentally ill. Take some Prozac. Final segment with Dr. Doug Rokke. Stay with us.
The Genesis Communications Radio Network proudly presents The Alex Jones Show, because there's a war on for your mind.
We've only got about 5-6 minutes left with Dr. Doug Rokke. You have to have him up sooner. We've covered a lot of areas. And it's not just the DU. It's the bioweapons labs. It's the chemical biological testing. I want you to have about 5 minutes to cover anything else you think is most important, Doc, with all of my, jumping in, adding different points. But I want to get your take on the mindset of, say, part of Project Shad and a few of the famous cases of marching our troops, British troops in, and nerve gassing them to death in chambers, not telling them they were going to kill them, and then lying to the families. I mean, why do they do that? How do they do that? And what does that say about who's running our society?
Well, you have to understand, this is part of the reason why the United States gave Iraq all the chemical and biological weapons for use against Iran and the Iraqi Kurds in the 80s. We wanted to see how effective our weapons were so that we could use them in warfare. And as a consequence, the mindset of the individuals, and I worked with these people, and I learned with them, and I taught them, and I talked with them until I saw the light came on. They don't care. We all reach out there and try to figure out how do we understand this mindset of killing and destroying, complete utter disregard for the health and the environment. And I can't come up with any answer, yet it exists. Now, what we have today is we have hundreds of thousands of casualties from the use of uranium weapons, misuse of all the other munitions. Conventional munitions have horrible side effects also. We have PTSD coming back, and the PTSD and the horrible suicides are a function of three things. Number one, being so scared you pee in your pants. Normal combat, historical. Number two, toxic exposures. The medical evidence is there. This is not mental, this is physiological toxic exposures. And the last thing is the realization all of a sudden dawns on them they've been lied to and lied to and lied to and lied to. And you can't deal with it. You can't deal with it. The average guy doesn't have the ability, the knowledge. He doesn't have the wherewithal or the resources to understand what's going on. And he's left out there without medical care. So we have hundreds of thousands trying to obtain medical care, and they cannot get prompt and optimal medical care from the Department of Veteran Affairs or from the Department of Defense.
Well, that's what I keep seeing in these reports of most of these guys that commit suicide are real sick. They say they got rashes, they're throwing up, their back hurts, they're bleeding, they've got tumors, and they don't give them health care, and then they kill themselves, and the news says, oh, they were mentally ill. But what you're saying and what the evidence does show is a lot of this isn't cracking up. It's that they are so sick that they're in excruciating pain, but the VA is mandated, and this is admitted, to cover it up because they don't want people knowing that in both Gulf Wars there was chemical weapons released from blowing up the facilities, and Saddam may have used them, and then now the DU, they've got to cover that up.
Absolutely. So it comes down to the bottom line. We go to war to control oil and resources. That's what it's absolutely about. I mean, most interesting here in the last few days, it's come out totally that the major oil corporations have now got a foothold back into Iraq, and they want it in Iran, they want it in Afghanistan and the Balkans, in Africa to control all oil resources. Carte blanche. That's what it's about. It has nothing to do with giving you cheap gas. It's total control of the domination of the world market. And our military has been used to do this for all over and over and over again for hundreds of years. So we're coming down to the bottom line. And this is the choice I had to make from learning firsthand experience with chem, biological, uranium weapons, and everything else. The weapons we use today in warfare have catastrophic, immediate, and long-term adverse health and environmental effects. And we can't use them anymore because we can't clean it up and we don't have the medical care. Because the leaders of our nation and the leaders of the nations, with the charge, don't care. There is no accountability. I can call the Department of Defense, the U.S. Army, the Department of Veteran Affairs Inspector General all the time, and I do, trying to get things done, taken care of. They don't respond and they don't care. Retaliation, as you know, thoroughly documented, is swift and brutal against anybody that speaks out the truth or demands accountability, or in the case of the Department of Defense, we ask them, demand that they comply with their own orders and regulations, which are legal mandates to provide medical care and clean up the environment, whether it's at Concord, Massachusetts, Vieques, Puerto Rico, Albany, New York, over here at Jefferson Proving Ground, Hawaii, or wherever it is. But they simply refuse to do it. It's scary.
Well, Dr. Rokke, this is just another big piece of the puzzle, what you're covering and what you're revealing here, and that's the point I keep going back to, is that just 10, 20, 30 years ago, the elites were still reckless and bad and corrupt, but they were still wise to the point of they didn't want to hurt themselves or get things out of control that could bring down the whole system. And now, hey, we'll release, weaponized Lyme disease, and of course, as they admit, it came out of there, the West Nile out of Plum Island off New York. Now we're going to put these in your major cities. And, yeah, we're going to genetically engineer food, knowing it kills all the mammals that eat it over time, and we're going to feed our kids it. I mean, the elite, most of them feed their kids this stuff. It's like it's a mass recklessness, self-destructiveness, I guess, that you see with rich kids that want to, run a car off a cliff or drive reckless or OD on drugs. And it seems like they're just, if you look at the pathology, the mindset, the psychology, it's just on 100 fronts. It's everywhere. Police brutality, corruption, Congress saying unlimited spying, total immunity, no Fourth Amendment today. Bush saying, I relish doing this. I mean, it is just, it is mania.
It's crazy. But we have to stop it because we have to speak out. We have to do something. We have to demand accountability, and that requires each and every one of us to step forward and do something like you've been doing, Alex. I mean, you've been doing it for years. God bless you, Alex.
Well, God bless you, Dr. Doug Rokke. I mean, it gets worse and worse. Everything we talked about comes true, and it gets worse than I even thought. And those that are siding with this evil, they just giggle and smirk like it's cute. It's like some 90-year-old man who's gone into dementia, rubbing all over themselves, laughing at us. It's not funny. This is insane. This is dangerous. And God help us. Well, give out some of the websites where you post articles and reports and documents. What are some of them? Your stuff's everywhere, but what are some of the better places to visit?
Trap Rock and Trap Rock had hostile takeover, but, you still get the Trap Rock, and I'm not sure exactly. I think it's Grassroots Peace now is what Charlie is and Sonny are doing, but they're out there. And just try and get the information. You have to understand, here are the Army regulations. Here is the information. These are their internal briefings. This is what's required. This is what's known. And we need to hold them accountable for what they've done and demand that they comply with their own requirements. That's what's not happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Off air, we were talking about all the deformities of U.S. troops' children, the contractors, the Iraqis, the Serbs, the Afghans, and the troops are going, my God, I've had 2 kids in a row. They're totally deformed. The Army says, DU's good for you.
All I can do is cry. I got another email yesterday with another photograph of another child that was born. That's horrible. And the question, this was a contractor, and they're saying, could this have been caused by DU? And I said, I don't know. We have to get the medical exam, answer all the questions, where they were exposed, what happened, what did they do. But when we see the same thing, the deformities over and over and over again, contractors, military personnel, our own, or the other inhabitants of these nations, you have to understand, they're not insurgents, they're not terrorists, they are the people that occupy their nation, that are opposing our illegal invasion and occupying destruction of their
even
nation.
If the troops hate them and say, oh, let's kill them, with all the videos of them shooting innocent women and children and celebrating, they're getting killed. The goons and the well-meaning people that are doing this, they're getting killed by it. And, I mean, when you see 300, 400, 500% increases in Serbia and Iraq, as you know, Doctor, of deformities associated with uranium, I mean, it's clear. We know it's the DU doing it, don't we?
Absolutely. This time around, we only have pesticides, we have uranium emissions, and we have the adverse reactions to the immunizations. That's all we have this time around, in contrast to Desert Storm.
Unbelievable. Well, Dr. Doug Rokke, I've got to get you back up for the martial law operations you witness in the near future. Again, thank you, sir, for all the time.
You're welcome, sir.
Take care. Dr. Doug Rokke, ladies and gentlemen, amazing person. I appreciate Alan Watt coming on a bit late. I was so much he was talking about, I wanted to get it out. We're going to come back and ask Alan Watt about this and get his take on it. CutIntoTheMatrix.com. He'll be with us for an hour and 40 minutes.